And in order to be able to perpetuate the very progressive society we stand for in opposition, we clash and engage head-on with the very world he tried to paint. He talked about a progressive world, but is it really progressive? Is it democratic? They stand on the basis of ceasing ideology, just on the basis of it being offensive, just on the basis of it being harmful. But we believe there are more catastrophic consequences rather than benefits when you silence individuals who are very thirsty and hungry to be able to shout and proclaim what they stand for. There will be backlash. What is our clash, right? We defend status quo and we believe that it's justified to allow these far-right ideas to perpetuate because they are legitimate expressions, and that there are more benefits if these are allowed to perpetuate. Further on that, my arguments. Let's move on to several responses against the immediate previous speaker. Firstly, there were a lot of contradictory characterizations of a society he wanted to paint. He talked about a progressive society, but at the same time, he stifled people's ability to express their ideas, even if it might be controversial, even if it might be taboo, Madam Speaker. And we believe that these taboo things have to be engaged head-on when you allow people to be able to rebut them, when you allow people to be able to call them out and say they are bigots, because we believe the LGBTQ movement is something worth remembering, as opposed to people saying that something and things like gender are very monolithic. And do we think that ultimately stifles innovation and it's ultimately not democratic? Secondly, he talked about how it might incite more violence. We think that violence is something that might happen on both sides, but at least on our side, we're able to know and quell where these riots are happening. We're able to see the bigots on the streets. When the news agencies are able to pick it up and show you what's exactly happening. When we have live tweeting on Instagram story and on Twitter. When we're able to see these mobilized riots and be able to call out and see, hey, this person at the back, he was injured. We send an ambulance to him. We think it's ultimately good to happen because at least the media is able to call them out and able to quell violence. And ultimately, we rather have people called out. But furthermore, we tell you a harm in more violence happening when you silence individuals. Because like I told you, they're very hungry and thirsty to be able to express themselves, even if it's something controversial. So someone who might be pro-KK, for example, or against the LGBT, has some particular claim to say. And the more you step in, and the more you tell him, you are not worth being talked about, you aren't worth to express yourself, that's precisely when these people might become more violent and even result in things like bombings, for example, to be able to send a message. Because these people want to be able to legitimize their claim, and we think we best legitimize their claim by allowing them to speak on the streets, even if riots and inciting might essentially happen. Thirdly, on the idea of media, we think he talked about how it's powerful, and we say precisely why it's powerful. Because we think that's how we can be able to create critical mass to incite change when legislation can happen, such as in Taiwan, where recently same-sex marriage was something legalized. And we think these legitimized changes can only happen when you have an opposition, when you have an Catholic Church actually saying that gender and sex and sexual identity are monolithic things to believe in and very binary options. The very reason we're able to challenge these ideas is the very way we're able to claim legislation for something greater. Now let's move on to a couple of quick concessions. Two concessions in this debate. We concede that people might be harmed and affected both positively and negatively. And second, we concede that discourse will happen on both sides. I'm going to mechanize here my speech how better discourse will happen on my side of the world. My argument is why the media should not cease coverage of these ideologies, even if people are offended. Why? What is the role of media? We think that the media is viewed as a particular watchdog that is supposed to be able to call out stakeholders and demand accountability. We think when you demand stakeholder responsibility, if they go too far. Like the violence I talked about, where these people are likely hurt, especially since people who are protesting come from very opposite sides of the spectrum. You have people who are pro-KKK and stand for how black people's lives don't matter, versus very staunch KKK activists who actually hunt these individuals wearing the white shirt. Also, you have people who are very anti-LGBT, who say that sexual identity is something very binary, as opposed to people who are supporting the movement who fight for equality on several fronts. Given this stark contrast in ideology, violence is likely to happen, but we think we'd rather be there to document the violence, to be able to control it and quell it. The media has to document what's happening for several reasons. Firstly, on the idea of information dissemination. We think that in order for people to be able to make the most informed decisions about a particular idea or belief, we have to be able to allow these ideas to perpetuate. We don't silence them and give them a one-sided definition or spectrum of what's happening. Who are we catering to? We're catering to the middle or the moderates. People who are most impartial about particular issues, like divorce, like same-sex marriage, like abortion, etc. People who want to be able to choose and make a particular call, but lack the information to be able to do so. Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Did you think that vote only implies variety of information, such because the media is allowed to cover all the events of the Parliament?
We think that given that the media will cover the events of this far right, you also have other media agencies who might also staunchly cover the far left, for example. Given diversity among different kinds of media platforms. You have ABS or CNN, for example, which might be far leaning on one side of the spectrum, but you also have BBC and Al Jazeera who are very moderate. And we think that given the plethora of options, people are able to make the best call. Secondly, we think that we also have to be able to recognize that these ideas that offend you are legitimate ideas worth being able to be listened to. Why? Precisely because we want this course to be able to perpetuate. We'd rather not shelter people and confine them to the safe spaces they have been accustomed to their whole life because they never encountered a big on the street, because they went to a Catholic university in the province, for example, where they were not exposed to Torah ideas. But we think that if we're able to cover these things in the news, we're able to best show these people the reality of these ideas and face it head on, rather than hiding these things under a veil and labeling them as illegitimate. So what have we told you? We talked to you why it's principally important to allow harmful things to perpetuate so we can best combat them. We talked to you how we're less likely to perpetuate violence, we can allow people to be protected. And lastly, we're talking to you about how we stand for a progressive society which stands for the plural ideas rather than a binary monarchy. Thanks.